Hello, welcome back. This is Mike from Canavan Wealth. Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. Mike reads the journal. Let's jump right into it. S&P 500 up about 0.5% since last week. And here we are about 0.43 right as a time of recording. Dipped a little bit, had a scary day yesterday. At the end of the month here, if we kind of look at kind of year to date, up 5.2% for the month of January. So we'll see how convincing of a recovery this is in the future. First article was a request about this LiDAR mapping that's been going on for a while. If you watch National Geographic like I do, this is kind of old news. They've been discovering these for a long time, but this particular set was interesting for a local reason here, which I'll come back to in a minute. But what this is they fly over the jungles in Latin America, Central America, South America, and use LiDAR, which is like sonar, but with light. So they send light out and it bounces back and they can get images like this. These, what you don't see is all the dense foliage that would normally be covering all of this. And they discover all of these Mayan civilizations. I've been down to this area as a tourist, and I went to a bird sanctuary on a birding tour, and we were looking at whatever bird, and the guide was like, oh, and that's over there, that little hill is actually a Mayan temple, It was all covered in trees. I would have not noticed it. This is all limestone around here, so the topography is very varied as well, and unless you can really see it like this, this hill would just look like a big old hill covered in vegetation. You would not be able to see it like this with these walls and kind of raised platforms that the Mayan built. So it's really interesting. One of the reasons I wanted to cover this was because right here, it said Richard Hansen, an Idaho State University archaeologist and lead author of the study. My wife actually teaches at ISU, and Richard here is a professor down there and been working on this, it sounds like, for a long time. So that was really cool. The next one, a little more economic news here. The Eurozone economy outpaced China and US in 2022. That is shocking because the last time that happened, it's in here somewhere, was like 1976. I can't find exactly where it was. Up 3.5%. A lot of this is attributed to COVID and kind of the world shakeup and how various economies came out of that. But, let's not forget that not that long ago, we were worried about a massive recession in Europe hitting because of all of the energy concerns that came out of the Ukraine war. So the fact that they did so well and are continuing to do well, right? They were so concerned about this winter, and it turns out it is just really not materialized. They're certainly being tight with their energy, but the stranglehold that Russia at one point had on them seems to have relatively quickly resolved itself. So good news. I should cover the energy crisis there with better informed, but that's as far as I understand it right now. This just goes to show you that, what worked for the last 10 years may not work for the coming years, right? So no one really expects Europe to stay in the lead, including Europe. This is rife with a number of comments from European officials saying that, eventually China and the US are going to overtake us again, most likely, but they are probably feeling pretty good about themselves winning for the last year or so. The last topic is another kind of economic news, interesting, also very global, political. This has been going on for a long time. Huawei, I think is this company. I'm sure it's pronounced different in Chinese and probably English. But this company, they effectively make cell phones, telecommunication devices. It's a Chinese company. It has been long now a target of U.S. regulation because of their effective national security concerns. So kind of going back to what happened with Europe and oil, if there were to become an even worse kind of Cold War with China or an actual war with China over Taiwan, the concern is that if we were dependent on their devices that would be a national security risk, as well as if everyone was using technology from this company, that they might be able to surveil us, kind of get information that we wouldn't want them to have. So they are continuing to crack down on this company. Now, the simple truth is I'm not educated enough to understand whether this is more political and more us just trying to dig at China than the actual concern of it. Right? Like similar, you see things about like TikTok and a few other Chinese companies, because these companies every large company in China is tied in with the Communist Party. They have such control over them. There's really, not only is there the national security risk, but there's the risk that these companies will be manipulated by the government. Famously, Alibaba, which was a favorite of many stock pickers for a long time, was kind of taken over by the Chinese government, has been struggling ever since. In US terms, that would be effectively like if Amazon, all of a sudden Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, went missing for 30 days, and then he showed back up all of a sudden, and the US government owned 50% of Amazon spontaneously. That's what would have happened, right, in American standards with what happened with Alibaba. So there's all these risks. One of the big concerns about with China's interest in Taiwan is that Taiwan is a major producer of microchips. And although we talk about the supply of oil and things these days is super important, microchips are very close second, if not have already overtaken in terms of limited production ability, because they're incredibly sophisticated. And China's influence in that is very important to America, because we use chips in virtually everything we do. So it's why you've seen a lot of legislation lately and a push for American production of microchips, and that we kind of control our own supply of all of the telecommunication devices we do. So that was it for Mike Reads the Journal today. I think it's been, kind of going back to this, it's been great economic times. We're just going to have to see where inflation goes. And luckily, we're going to see that in the next couple of weeks as we see Fed minutes. Inflation numbers are out. They were about as expected. So I hope this was informative. Thanks for listening. I will talk to you soon.